All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Sean Callan. Here. Julie Cheney.
Here.
Tom Chiappa.
Here.
David Crisafulli.
Here.
Jim McKenzie's here, and Kristen Norfleet.
Here.
And Sean Onmock is not, as is Amanda Connolly is not. If we can please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so this evening we actually have two meetings in one meeting. We're just putting them back to back. So the very first part is our public hearing about the proposed 25-26 budget. So I am going to officially open the public hearing, and we will begin with Dr. Kilmer.
You said you'd be ready, man. Okay. Very similar presentation to what I did last week, but as a requirement, when it comes to making sure that we're doing a good job of communicating our proposed budget to the community, we are obligated to have a public hearing where the public can ask questions or if they have any concerns or statements they'd like to make about the budget. This is not the only time that a taxpayer could, of course, comment. They absolutely could give me a call. They could absolutely send me an email. So I don't want people to feel as though they can't call and ask questions if they didn't come today. I am always available to answer any questions that people may have. So again, today is our budget hearing, and then budget vote is on May 20th. So three-part budget. I'm just going to give a general overview. In our capital budget, you will notice, and again, we discussed this at our last meeting, about a $2 million decrease. Again, we see a significant decrease because we have a lower band payment, that bond anticipatory note. Last year, the budget showed about a $1.5 million increase budget year to budget year. This year, we're showing, when you're looking at the overall capital budget, about a $2 million decrease. As our community knows, they approved a referendum October 2024. The long-range facility plan has 3 more projects where we're going to the voters and voting every 2 years. And again, our hope is that we can kind of stabilize that so that we don't see these peaks and valleys, if you will. Peaks and valleys are difficult to budget with. In a year like this where the obligation decreases, it gives us a little bit more flexibility. But when we're on the upswing, it makes it a little bit more complicated. So we really do want to see in the future that we can try to stabilize this. That's a few years out, but our hope is in our long-range facility plan that we're going to be able to make that a little bit more stable. Our administrative budget year to year is not any significant changes. We're not adding staff. These are contractual increases, benefit increases, the typical increases you might see budget year to budget year. Our largest change is actually in program. This is where you see about a $6 million increase budget year to budget year. Program is the part of the budget that is closest to our students. This is our teaching staff, our instructional staff, special education, teaching assistants, transportation, athletics. There are so many pieces within that program budget. And much of this change is actually focused in on the contractual changes that we see from year to year. So our 3-part budget, you've heard me talk about this a great deal. In proportionality, about 78% of our budget is focused on program. Again, what's closest to our students. Administrative budget is a little under 10% of the entire budget, and then our capital is a little under 13%. This is right where we want to see it. If our community is comparing our budget with other school districts' budgets, when we're looking at proportionality, we want to see that 75, 15, 10. That's a very typical percentage that you're seeing. And again, all districts are really focused on what can we do to best support our students, and that's why you see a focus directly connected to program. Historically, long before I came here, the district has done a good job of historically focusing on that proportionality when they're looking at the three-part budget, and this trend just demonstrates that. Our revenues, as you know, our budgets are revenue-driven. We don't have a lot of say, if you will, or influence over our revenue, other than what it is that we levy with our taxpayers in our community. This year's revenue, and I'll break down the state aid a little bit more in the next slide, but the majority of our increase in revenue comes from state aid, from budget year to budget year, and then we also see a slight increase in what we expect in our pilots. Again, even today, even though today is our formal budget hearing, these are still estimates because New York State has still not signed on the dotted line and approved budget amendments. We do expect those to come soon. We do believe that these are very much in line with what we expect our revenues to ultimately be. But again, I have to emphasize, we are always, when we don't have a finalized state budget, we're looking at estimates. So state aid, our breakdown for next year, there's a couple of components here. So foundation aid, that's the aid that we often talk about or hear about, the foundation aid formula. That's where we see about a $3 million increase from budget year to budget year. BOCES aid, you see also a pretty sizable increase. I know we've talked about it a little bit at a couple of our different board meetings, but BOCES is, again, a way for us to cooperate, all districts within a county or region to cooperate. And what ends up happening is the state actually provides aid for our use of those services. Oswego City School District receives a good amount of aid when it comes to BOCES services. And so what that means is for every dollar we spend in a given year, the following year we receive a percentage of that in revenue in the next, right? So for us, if we're being good stewards of our community's finances, we're looking to leverage BOCES in any way that we can. And so we've been looking very closely at what are the different ways in which we can utilize BOCES and capitalize on that to generate additional revenue for us in the future. So that's why you see that. You probably won't see those as significant of increases from year to year because we've done a lot of that work, but we're going to continue to examine ways in which we can maximize that revenue source. High-cost aid, instructional material aids, and transportation aid, not large changes from year to year. And then building aid, I'll go back to my comment previously when we saw that significant change in the capital budget. We're talking about those band payments. The building aid is another example of where we have those peaks and valleys when it comes to a revenue source. So we get aid extended over a period of time when we do our building projects. They fall off after a certain number of years, right? We want to see that stabilize and leveled. We don't want to have to plan for $1 or $2 million drop-offs in any given year. So when we're looking at that long-range facility plan, it's also very, very focused on what does it mean for our budget and hoping to stabilize that moving forward. So again, that gives you a general idea as to what is included in the state aid component. Historically, Oswego City School District has done an excellent job of saving for lean times. This has been a long-standing practice here at Oswego City School District, and so our reserves are in a good state that will help us should we lose federal funding, should we have unexpected revenue losses, or should we have unexpected costs. We do have reserves available to us to help mitigate those concerns in the future. So what does that mean for the 25-26 school year budget? What we're asking our community for is a 0% tax levy change. So the levy in which the 24-25 budget was built upon is what the 25-26 is built upon as well. Again, we had talked about this last year, and I bring this up as another slide just to demonstrate the focus that the Board of Education has had over the the past few years on trying to make sure we're being responsible to our community, understanding that inflation costs are continuing to increase, but that we have been fiscally conservative to look for ways to mitigate those costs and not directly passing those on to our taxpayers. And again, the levy versus our total budget, you see that trend continue percentage-wise to go down. And we hope that trend will continue. In the 25-26 budget, we do have another capital outlay project. Last year was our first that we've had in quite some time. You know that was focused at Riley. $100,000 doesn't buy you a whole lot. And so we were only able to do a few of the doors that we were hoping to do at Riley. The capital outlay that we have earmarked in the 25-26 budget finishes that work. The nice thing about this particular project, if the vote is successful, we'll be able to bid that work immediately. All of the work was designed and approved by SED last year. We just weren't able to do all of the work. Now that it's all designed, we'll be able to bid immediately. And so what we might see is, we might see some of the capital outlay work from the 24-25 project being done at the same time as the 25-26. Usually you have a longer window of time from when you get approval to actually getting the work done because you're submitting to SED, but because we did all of that design work and submittal prior to, it allows us to do that work much more quickly. I put the slide about contingency budget just because I think it's an important piece to remember for the Board of Education and also for the community. If for whatever reason a budget is not successful, the Board of Education may either bring an alternate budget to the voters or they may adopt a contingency. In this case, a contingency would be a $0, 0% change when you're talking about our tax levy. But there are some restrictions when it comes to a contingency budget. And so we would still have to follow those contingency rules. Non-health and safety preservation facility related equipment cannot be purchased. Community or non-school use of facilities, not allowed unless they are paying for any and all costs. So we would really have to dig down to cost of turning on the lights, custodial, every aspect. We couldn't share any of that burden if a community was going to utilize our facilities. And transfer to capital items would also be restricted. So the 25-26 budget continues our focus similar to last year. It is a 0% tax levy change from budget year to budget year. We're maintaining, preserving all programming for our students and staff. Proposition summary, we have the budget is first. Second is part of our replacement plan. We replace 9 buses annually. We borrow or bond $1.5 million to purchase those buses. We do receive significant aid in all of our transportation-related expenditures. So when you see a $1.5 million purchase, we're not paying $1.5 million in cash. We are borrowing that money. We are also receiving about $20,000 in trade-in value for each of those buses that we trade in. When you look at the trade-in value plus the sizable aid that we receive, the cost to the district is actually nominal. And I would argue we actually save money. Our maintenance costs go down directly, out of service costs because of maintenance goes down significantly. So this really makes good sense for the district, both fiscally but also just operationally. 3 and 5 are focused on the public library, both their budget and trustees. While you as a board do not adopt or have any control, it is our obligation to include those within the ballot. And then for Board of Education. So if anyone wants additional information, if you go to oswego.org, there's a large header right at the very top of the website. You can't miss it. Click on that. It'll bring you to a page that gives you the 25-26 kind of quick snapshot of the overall budget, Plus, it'll give you a lot of access to a lot of additional documents, including the budget book. The budget book gives you line-by-line costs of everything within the budget. We also have printed copies at all of our buildings available if people want access to them, but you can find it right here on the website. Our newsletter is actually at print right now. The newsletter is available online if you want to take a look at it before you receive it in your mailboxes, but hopefully those will be in people's mailboxes by next week. That's the 25-26 budget. Any questions from the board? Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kilmer. So next on the agenda is the public comment portion, in which I do not believe anybody signed up. So then I will officially close the public hearing. And now we're to the regular hearing, which would also have a public comment session, which nobody signed up. So we're to acknowledgements with Julie Chetney.
Okay, first notice is from the high school. On Friday, April 11th, the winter and spring sports were recognized at our final pep rally of the year. Thank you to the Chamber Singers for opening up the pep rally with a beautiful rendition of the national anthem. This was a fun way to kick off spring break, and a great time was had by all students, faculty, and staff. Also, the week before break, students in social studies classes wrote letters to veterans being recognized in an upcoming honor flight on May 5th. Thank you to the students and their teachers for taking the time to write to these honorees and their families. In athletics, we have a new school record. Sophomore Maria Sweet recently passed Abby Hurley Martin as the new softball strikeout leader for Oswego. Congratulations, Maria. Also in athletics, the Oswego City School District Section 3 Scholar Athlete Award winners are Elena DeBlasi and Thomas Kerwin. Elena plays soccer, hockey, and lacrosse. Tommy plays basketball and baseball. They'll be honored at a banquet on the 9th of June at the SRC Arena at OCC at 6 p.m. Congratulations to Elena and Tommy. Fitzhugh Park School held its annual spring carnival on the 1st. Our Fitzhugh Park students, families, and staff had a great time while raising money for the HSA to support a variety of student events. We want to thank our HSA partners and families for their continued support of our students. We also would like to thank our very brave staff who got dunked in the cold, but not as cold as last year's weather. That looks like not fun. I didn't realize they did that. Minetto students challenged each other with a penny war. They collected $2,500 for their June Pirate Games field days. A big thank you to Madison and Kim Leroy, who counted all of the pennies. I think that's it.
All right, thank you, Julie. The next thing on the agenda that we have something for is the consent agenda. So I could ask for a motion to group consent agenda items A through H, please.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Julie. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion on these consent agenda items? Okay, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up is the personnel. I'll start with our professional staff, so these will be items A through D. If I can have a motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kristen. Any comments on personnel items A through D? Okay, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Now we have support staff and extra compensatory. These are items E through K. So can I have a motion for personnel items E through K, please?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. Any discussion on E through K? Okay, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next, we have finance, and I'm going to again group these items. Finance items A through E, please.
I'll move.
Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, David. Any discussion? Tom,
Just,
anything?
I would just like to again say thank you very much for the donations. They're appreciated, much appreciated.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. So next, we're to items from the board, and I'm going to say first, Happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all of our teachers, all the educators, our paraeducators, our specialists, and everybody who does the wonderful work to help our students be all that they can be. So thank you very much. So sorry to steal that if somebody else was going to do that one, but I did have the microphone. Is there anything else from any other board members?
I just wanted to say Happy Nurses Day to all of our school nurses. We could not get through the school day without these very important people in our schools. So thank you to them, and I hope they know how much we appreciate them.
Thank you, Julie. Anybody? Kristen?
I do. I have a couple things. First, I was attending the Oswego Middle School and Oswego High School National Honor Society and National Junior Honor Society inductions yesterday. It was a great event. I will say this, though, it's a challenge to all boys. 39 kids were inducted at the high school, and like 6 of them were boys. So, I mean, I'm a girl mom and a boy mom, but it seems to me the boys are just as capable of being student leaders and student scholars and student community members. So I'm going to challenge them for next year to step it up and try to match the participation of the girls. But I wanted to thank Ms. Morse and Ms. Brown and Ms. Donovan for putting on great events honoring the students and their families. I can tell you that I know that the students are tasked with sending a note to 2 teachers for each student, asking them to come and thanking them for what they've done for them that helped got them to this point. And when I looked around both at the middle school and at the high school, it was really great to see that there were teachers in the audience. I did want to, because it's Teacher Appreciation Week, I wanted to shout out a couple of specific teachers. I like to do that from time to time when I have time at the microphone. I wanted to thank Melissa Stafford at KPS. My daughter had her for 2nd grade. I'm not sure if that's currently what she's teaching, but she's such a great teacher that she came to National Honor Society induction. She brought pictures when my daughter was in 2nd grade to show her of the embarrassing outfits she would wear to school when she insisted on picking her own clothes. And she was thrilled to be there and to support not just my daughter, but other kids from KPS who she saw being inducted into the Honor Society. For all of the teacher invitations that went out, I know people have lots of stuff going on, especially on a Monday at 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock, but to see that some of the teachers came when they got those invites to support their kids, I know how much it meant to the kids and how much it meant to the families that teachers were there to support their kids. I also want to give a shout out to Ms. Morse, not only as the National Honor Society advisor, but I know from the things that I hear about the kids at the high school that she creates such a warm and welcoming environment to her students that even after they're not her students anymore, they feel comfortable going to her when they have problems, going and sitting in her classroom even while she's teaching to study or eat lunch because it's such a safe space for them. And it's always really, really great to hear about teachers who do so much extra and are putting so much more into their position. And I really want to make sure that people know how great they are and how much it's appreciated. And we know that this is a district of lots of amazing professionals, but if I can take the opportunity to call out people's names from time to time, I always want to do that. So thank you to Ms. Stafford, thank you to Ms. Morse.
Thank you, Kristen. Any other board members this evening? Okay, we're all good. There is a need for...
Before you do that, I want to chime in. I know I'm not a board member, but I want to chime in just again about Teacher Appreciation Week. You know, I sent out a message to the community on Sunday, just asking that people drop a teacher a note. I don't think our teachers, and I don't care if it's here in Oswego or anywhere in the country, teachers don't always hear the difference that they make. You know, I think as a student, I don't know that I paid as close of attention until I was older, but I can tell you as a dad, I'm brought to tears based on the life-changing impact that some of my children's teachers have had on them, and that my children wouldn't be the people that they are without those individuals. And so as a community, it's important to take time to honor those that do make a difference. And so whether it is someone from this year, someone from 5 years ago, or someone from 50 years ago, take a minute to say thanks so they understand how much they meant to you and the difference that they made. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Kilmer.
Hey, Jim. I know that we skipped over it because I think you asked if anybody, just to be clear though, there were no committee reports or anything, right?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. Thank you for, sometimes I do miss it on the agenda, and you've always been one to catch me, but, so thank you. No, today I was told there were no committee reports. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay, there is a need for an executive session this evening for the matters of collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of Civil Service Law and the medical, financial credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation. There will not be a need for a vote afterwards. So if I can have a motion for executive, please? Thank you, David. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Have a good evening. Encourage people to stay for Meet the Candidates at 7.